Welcome back to Sasquatch Theory. Today's episode takes us deep into South Central California, into a land where ancient forests, tribal warnings, and the unknown collide. My guest Matt has spent decades trying to make sense of a series of encounters that began in 1997, when he and a friend were riding bikes through the Los Padres National Forest. What started as a foul smell on the trail quickly turned into a chilling moment. A massive black, muscular arm extending from the tree line, hairy, powerful, and impossibly long. The tribal elders confirmed with Matt that the Sasquatch truly do exist out in the forest, and he should consider himself lucky. But this was only the beginning. Months later, while canoeing on a lake sacred to the native people, something with scales the size of dinner plates bumped into Matt's canoe. The elders believed the lake was a portal, an access point to the ocean, and a home for ancient beings the outside world refuses to acknowledge. If you enjoy listening to Sasquatch Theory, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and be sure to comment down below. Of course, if you have your own Bigfoot encounter you would like to share with me here on Sasquatch Theory, feel free to get in touch sometime at sasquatchtheory@outlook.com. Get ready. This episode bridges Bigfoot, lake monsters, and the paranormal in a way few stories ever do. All right, Matt, welcome to Sasquatch Theory. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well.
Good. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show tonight. If you would, tell me a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and your experiences from the very beginning, please.
Sure. So I live in North Idaho. I'm from Southern California originally, so I've lived up here for about 10 years or so. And I had a couple experiences when I lived in California that I'm going to talk to you about today. So they all take place right around the I'd say it's Southern California still. Some people that live there call it Central California, but it's about an hour and a half north of Santa Barbara area. It's called the Los Padres National Forest.
Okay. If you would, tell me what you were doing the day of the experience and kind of put me in your shoes and try to describe everything in full detail.
Sure. So I was 15. I had gotten a job offer from a buddy of my aunt's who worked on this 400-acre parcel in the middle of the national forest. And it's a pretty remote place. It's called Zaka Lake. It was a sacred grounds to the Chumash Native American tribe. And so I was pretty fortunate to get a call asking me if I'd like to come up and do some work up there for, as long as I wanted to. And it's a volunteer work basis, but it was a live-in type of situation. So I'd move up there basically in a cabin. And so I said, sure. And I went up with my cousin, who was a year younger than me. So he was 14 at the time, and he was going to work just through the summer with us. So I think it was our first day off. And we took this little trail that led to the campgrounds.
Real quick, Matt, if you would, go back a minute. For some reason, the phone cut out.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we... So anyhow, I got this job up in at this place called Zaka Lake with my cousin, and we worked there for a couple weeks, and we finally got a day off. And my foreman gave us some bikes to go ahead and mountain bike around the area, because most of the areas it's very remote. It's about, I'd say, probably 45 miles from the highway, and there's really nothing back there. There's no street lights. I mean, there's nothing out there. So anyhow, so we're like, yeah, we're gonna bike ride, and we decided to go bike ride up by our campground, which the campground dead ended into national forest land, and just beyond that, maybe a half mile, there's a waterfall, and it's all lava rock, like white lava rock. It's beautiful. And we'd gone up there one time because our spring was up there for our well to repair some of our well stuff. So we wanted to bike out to it. So we were riding our bikes down this trail, and we decided to take a shortcut and go off the trail and kind of take the riverbed side of the riverbed up towards this waterfall. And I think we were about maybe 300 yards from the waterfall, and the brush is real thick there. So there's a lot of oak trees and pine trees and manzanita and stuff like that. And it's super dense when you're in the bottom of the canyon. And so we biked up to kind of where we could, and the river rocks started to get too big. So we went ahead and laid our bikes down, and we started hiking through the riverbed up to the trail. Now we started to smell something pretty strong, like kind of like rancid. Well, it's pond scum is what it smelled like to me. So like a musty old algae kind of smell, sulfur smell, a little bit too in there. And so we started to smell that, and he was probably, I'd say, about 15 feet in back of me, 20 feet in back of me, and I kind of had to go up a berm onto where this little deer trail was that I was going to try to finish taking up to the waterfall. And I got up there, and I was probably about 10 feet into this kind of denser cavity of trees, and I heard a pretty loud noise, like a cracking noise to my left. So I looked, and I saw a pretty good sized figure. And really, I couldn't get a really good look at it, but what I did see was an arm come through the brush and break off a branch limb that was probably 4 inches, 5 inches around. I mean, just snapped it right off. And what was interesting about it is I had never seen any bear or anything in my life like that before. So when I saw this arm come down, I noticed the hand was more human-like than anything else, and the hair was stringy, like longer, and it was like reddish brown. So kind of like a almost maroon brown, and it happened very quick. So when I turned around, I turned to see what my cousin was doing, and my cousin was running. He was gone. So he left me. He left me there, and so I saw this branch break off, of course, and I looked at it for a minute and just took off. And like I said, it was so dense in there, I couldn't see very deep. I could just see this arm, huge arm, and I mean, it was, like I said, really good size. So I took off running, and we went back. We left our bikes. We ended up running all the way back into our cabin area, and I told one of the elders about it, and he goes, yeah, that's he said, you should feel blessed. That's, not everybody gets to see that. That's our local, Bigfoot, and they like totally went on with their day about it. So when I asked my cousin, what he saw, he didn't see. He said he could see something dark in the brush, but that was about it. He said he saw the look on my face when I was looking into the brush, and that's what made him run, and the sound. So yeah, so that was my encounter with what I believe to be a Bigfoot, because later in my time there, I spent a year and a half working there, and I did learn a lot about bears. We had a big, major bear problem, and I was the one that ended up having to deal with that. So I really did get familiar with bears and mountain lions, because we had tons of those as well, and coyotes and that type of thing. And nothing was ever like that. Nothing looked like that at any point. Nothing even close to that size did I ever encounter besides that day. And I say size-wise because when I went back to try to see if I could see a print or something, and maybe the riverbed that was on the other side of the trail that I had kind of jumped up on, the berm, I noticed that the berm height was probably 3 feet, 4 feet. So whatever it was like a sharp decline. So whatever it was would have probably been standing 4 feet lower than me or so, and it had to be close to eye level, or bigger maybe even, to me. So I suspect, after looking at the scene, that it was probably somewhere around the 8 foot mark. And something else that I noticed there for the time that I worked there that I didn't really understand at the time was we used to have a lot of tree markings at the, say, 9 to 10 foot level, all around that area in particular. So where, bark would be scratched off, like ripped off of trees. And at the time I attributed it to bear activity. But as I got to know the bears and stuff, I realized that that was that's a different look one, and usually it's much lower, especially when we're talking about black bears. They do climb, but they're not typically 8 foot tall, 10 foot tall. They're not getting that high up generally to do that type of damage to the tree. So, but yeah, that's my Sasquatch encounter and like I said, this happened in a place called Zaka Lake, which is in the Los Padres National Forest. And if anybody's listening that's familiar with California at all, the Los Padres National Forest is about 3,000 miles of national forest. So it's about 200,000 acres or 2 million acres. I'm sorry. It's humongous. So it actually goes almost all the way up into the coastals, which there's another range that leads into that. But it almost makes a U shape underneath the Central Valley, and it goes directly across through another mountain range into the sequoias. So on both sides of the Los Padres, you have the Cascade Range and the Sequoia Range, the Sierra Nevadas. So it's right where California starts to get not populated, So yeah, it's kind of interesting. And I didn't think about it at first, but my dad's cousin, they lived in Northern California, and they had encounters a lot, and they would talk about it and stuff. And at the time, as soon as I realized kind of what had happened, I reflected back on that, and I was like, okay, so I'm not crazy, and, and like I said, the elders were telling me that, it's a good thing that I saw that, and that I was allowed to witness that. And yeah, it was really neat. So I never witnessed anything else there. I was, like I said, there a year and a half, and I used to go through there all the time after that, but I never got to see it again, sadly.
Yeah, that's incredible. And before we move on to your next experience, let's talk about the arm. About how long do you think this arm was?
Gosh, I'd say probably at least 4.5 foot, 5 foot. It was really long to be stretching up and like swinging through the branch like that. And what's interesting about it is when I think about it, it was long for sure, but it was like the build of the arm was so muscular that it didn't look extraordinarily long. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
It was very defined muscle structure for sure.
Yeah, and most people just hear the limb break or the tree break. In this case, you saw the creature's arm, and why do you think it revealed itself? Do you think it was trying to warn you?
I do. I think that we did have some. I don't know if it was for keeping me out of there or if it was for safety's sake. I'm not really sure. We did have some pretty serious problems with mountain lions that I was not aware of when I at that time, because I was so new up there. So I didn't really know these things, and I would imagine my foreman probably should have sat us down and talked to us about some of these things before they let us loose. But this was in 1997. Yeah, 1997. So it was a little, they were kind of just let you loose, right, and just let you run. And but yeah, I do think that it was because it never showed itself to me again. I do think that there was some type of warning there. That's what I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. Whether they're warning us that they're in the area or they're trying to protect us from something else, maybe it's a mountain lion, another cryptid creature, or something bad going on in the area. It's definitely something spiritual. That's how I felt when I encountered these creatures. And like the elder told you, you should consider yourself lucky. And why exactly do they say that? Like, why should you be lucky to encounter one of these things? Obviously, it's rare and most people don't get to see them. But what do the natives say about it?
That like you're trusted. Because like when I went up there, I really I grew up in like the projects, like not a good area. And so when my grandfather had a good hiking and fishing background and stuff. He would take us, out to go and stuff. So I had a pretty good handle on the outdoors because of that. But I grew up in the city, like I said, in the projects in the San Bernardino area and LA areas. So when I went up there, my plan was to completely change my life, and completely just give everything I had into this job, and just really try to be a part of where I was living, because like I said, it was so remote. There was only like 6 permanent residents, in this 400-acre lot, and we were charged with taking care of this huge lake, well, good sized lake. It's not huge, but good sized lake. And there was 25 cabins there and stuff. And we ran retreats for, large group and retreats and small group retreats. And they were like, it's rustic retreats. So I was like, I really was going to dedicate myself to that, to just trying to be present and, be a good steward as well. And, at the time I had smoked cigarettes, and I would make sure that I never left any trace of that anywhere, because I didn't want any piece of me to disturb anything. And when I was talking to one of the elders, that's what he was telling me, that respect is like known, and that's one of the reasons that I probably was able to see that, is that I was on the same level, in terms of respect wise and care for the place that, say, he was.
Absolutely. I've spoken to other Native Americans, and they say that you want to show respect to these creatures, or else you could anger them and anger the spirits. And the natives told me to leave like tobacco, brown sugar, sweet grass, or anything that's natural. And it's just a way of showing respect. So it makes sense to me for sure.
Yeah, the tobacco thing is something that we did do, and tri-tip. So, um, so that was up there. There's a thing called Santa Maria tri-tips, so it's a big deal. And so we would leave a Santa Maria tri-tip as well, and just, you never know. I mean, that thing was gone instantly, no matter what took it, right? Something something was grabbing that thing, but yeah, that was the sentiment to me was. And it is interesting because living up there, we did have a lot of workers that came up that were super disrespectful, and it's almost like, God sorted that out. It's like they didn't mean to be, they weren't supposed to be there, because something would happen and they'd have to leave, and whether it was they got hurt, or they just, it didn't work out in some way, shape, or form, but it was always something that they did that caused that dismissal. And so yeah, I was always very humble about it, because I was just happy to be there, to be out of what I was in and to be there. So I was super humble about it. And I've never gone out. I've always been interested and more like caring about the phenomenon anyway.
Yeah.
Not more of a like, oh, I want to go hunt this thing or something like. No, it's always been like it's I want to coexist and just be quiet and listen and feel what's happening, instead of dominate, I guess.
Hmm.
It's been my
Yeah.
mentality
And the
when it
respect
comes to
thing
that.
definitely makes sense, because like people don't even think about it. Maybe they'll toss their beer bottle out the window and one of these things steps on it, or maybe like a hunter leaves his trap out in the woods and never picks it up, or shoots a deer and just doesn't bother looking for it. And these things are highly intelligent. They seem to know things that are beyond our comprehension. So I do believe they're able to pick up on people and their intentions for sure.
Yeah, I think so as well. Yeah, I believe so as well.
Yeah. And this arm, it had this reddish brown color, and you said it was stringy. Did it have a shine to it or anything else that stuck out to you?
Yeah, it was kind of shiny. Yeah, like really nice hair. Like it didn't look like not
Like it
taken care of,
bathed and
right?
used conditioner.
Yes. Yeah, like super nice hair, and
Yeah.
not like not stringy really, but like it's hard to describe, but it was kind of stringy, like long wise, but it was like, fluid, very fluid, I would say. It moved very fluidly.
Hmm.
Um and
Nice.
it is odd because you see all that so quick, but it was slow for me at the time, you
Like
know.
everything went in slow motion.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it did for me as well. And the fur, the hair, whatever you want to call it, is really hard to describe. It's hard to compare to another animal or a person, because it's like so unique, and it's just like their own, I don't know, their own coat. Like not another animal has that look to it. But
Yeah, and being
uh,
able to see like the muscle structure under it, even though the hair was that, like, that I guess, like thick, was is interesting as well, because I could see the muscle definition, like I said, in like the top of the forearm and the bicep area, you know. But yeah, it was kind of it was a trip for sure.
Yeah, and another important note that I took down was you said you smelled something before the encounter. Was it like sulfur? I know you described it, but can you tell me more about it?
It's exactly like if you stepped in like like a waterway that say an overflow area, and when it starts to recede and kind of start to dry up and it gets swampy and you start to get that really bacteria filled mud that really stinks, like in the bottom of a lake, or a pond, that is, like a seasonal pond, for instance, or a swamp. That's what it really reminded me of. It reminded me of a swamp smell. So like my grandpa used to have ponds, and he would clean them. So he'd drain them and clean them, and we'd pull pond scum out, which is basically fish poop and you know um, organic material that was degraded and had sunk to the bottom of these ponds that he had in his backyard. And that's what it smelled like to me, like this combination of like just, I mean, basically pond scum. So, but real thick, like way more than like a skunk when you smell a skunk, just way more intense, I would say. Not as bad at smelling, like in terms of foul, but more like, yeah, sulfury and like a swamp, a lot like a swamp.
Yeah, and it sounds like you guys snuck up on the creature because it sounds like the wind was in your favor, like it was blowing away from the creature and towards you and not the other way around. And also, you guys were on your bikes, is that correct? So maybe you guys threw this thing off.
Yeah, yeah, we were on our bikes and then we dropped them, and then took another like a little easier footpath route up, and uh, yeah, that's what I always kind of thought was maybe we startled it, you know, somehow, or you know, who knows, or it was keeping me out of there, well, or we startled it and it was keeping us out of there.
Yeah, not a good time, is what the Sasquatch was thinking.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's weird because I was never, even though I ran. My cousin was running, and I ran. I didn't feel like super intense fear. Um, like my adrenaline was going for sure, but I didn't feel like I used to surf and stuff. I've seen great white sharks, and I was scared, right? Like I saw a great white shark and I was like, it's an instant primal reaction that I had to run to get out of that water. You know what I mean? When I ran from this thing, it was more of that I didn't understand what was happening. I didn't have that same immediate like scare fear inside. So I don't know what that was about, but uh, yeah, I didn't. I just didn't have that same exact primal fear that I've had
Mhm.
before with other animals.
Yeah, it was the same way with me. I had like this feeling of calmness over me. And I don't know why. Like I was still shocked, but I was just calm. And of course, the creature wasn't like charging at me, it was walking away, or they'd hide behind a tree and disappear. So maybe that's why.
Yeah,
But I don't know. I had this unexplainable feeling of just being calm and shocked at the same time. And I had like no thoughts in my mind because my brain couldn't process what I was looking at.
yeah, yeah. I think that's what was happening to me is I wasn't sure, like I said, I knew there was bears and stuff, but there was no way, right? Like I just, my brain did not go to, oh, it's this or that. It was like, whoa, just like what's happening. And then, when you get to process it, you're like, oh man, that thing was very human like, very human like
Yeah,
for sure.
that's incredible. Okay, Matt, if you would tell me about the next experience, put me in your shoes, and describe everything else that happened after this encounter.
Perfect. So it's at the same place. And I'd probably been there, I don't know, maybe 6 months at the time, or 4 months at the time, something like that. And it was, the lake is, there's some type of volcanic something going on there because, like I said, the waterfall that's not too far away where I had that other encounter, is white volcanic rock. And so the lake, it smells like sulfur a lot. And there's a ton of fish in it, and it's predominantly carp, catfish, and koi. They're in this lake, which, carp are, I don't know how the koi got in there exactly. I don't know if people put them in there at some point, but carp are same line, right? Like pretty much. So there's they all swim on the top, which is weird for catfish. So the catfish as well, they swim on the top of the water. It's very odd, but you can't eat them because they taste like sulfur. So in the water, it stays, probably in the high 60s to mid 70s year round. So even in the wintertime when it's 30 degrees outside, 40 degrees outside, the water's still 65, 70 degrees. So it creates this huge steam plume, up into the air because it's so warm, right? The temperature difference. So I was out, it was about probably midnight. I had a long day at work. And up there, you kind of work until you can't work anymore, and then, you know, sometimes you work till midnight. Sometimes you work till 10. Yeah, and 7 days a week, basically. You get a day off every once in a while because there's just so much to do. So I went ahead and was like, well, I'm gonna grab a couple beers and go sit jump in a canoe. And one of my favorite things to do would be at night is to canoe around the edge of the lake real silently and watch. The bears would feed on the fish even though they tasted terrible. They'd still grab them. So I like to try to sneak up and just hang out and be there when they were doing their thing. And there's no lights or anything out there, so it's super dark. You can see the sky is like a dome of stars. It's absolutely beautiful. And this night it was a full moon, and all this steam was rising up. So I'm cruising from one spot that I like to frequent to look at bear activity to another spot. And I'm taking kind of a straight route, like cutting off the lake in a third while I'm doing it. So I'm going over a larger portion of the lake, and I'm doing it pretty silently by keeping my paddle on one side of the boat while I'm paddling my canoe. And I got hit. So something hit me pretty hard, and I was in like a 17-foot canoe, like a three man canoe. Uh, I got hit and I got pushed up completely out of the water. So my canoe was out of the water, and because of the moonshine, I could see what was pushing me up out of the water, and what it looked like was a ridge, like an animal with a ridge that was diagonally pushing my pretty much entire boat that as far as I know, was completely out of the water on the back of this thing. And down to my side, I could see these what look like dinner plate size plates, like scales on the side of this thing. And it pushed me up, and I really tried to steady myself. And I'm looking at this thing, and we went back into the water, and that was it. Right, like the thing was sticking out in front of me, and I was in the back, of course, in the canoe. If you're by yourself, you're going to be in the back of the canoe while you're paddling and steering. And so the front was elevated out by this thing, and I was elevated out in the back. So I have no idea how big it was, but it was humongous to push me completely out like that in my whole boat. And so I pretty much panicked because I'm like in the middle of it. I don't have a life jacket in there. I don't have nothing. I was I was about a beer in, to relaxing and canoeing around. And so I just took off as fast as I could for shore. And I got into our dock area and ran home, went to bed, and the next morning I woke up and I went and talked to my buddy who was one of the elders that we worked with, same guy actually I talked to about my Bigfoot experience. And I told him about it, and he goes, man, you need to go look at the museum's pictures of the painted caves. And because the Shumash had painted caves. And he said, there was a lake, like monster, basically, that lived here, and that they had painted pictures of this huge thing. And so he told me the same thing, really like, wow, man, I can't believe you got to see that. Super cool, it's really neat. And and yeah, so I was totally freaked out by it. And I didn't go back in the water for a couple days, and then I went ahead and went on back to doing what I usually did, and I never had a problem again. It never happened again. But yeah, that was really freaky. And what's interesting about this place is if you were to Google it today, you'd see that the depth of it is 65 feet. But my foreman had it tested by the UC Santa Barbara, and they did at 65 feet. They did hit a algae patch that was 6.5 foot thick that they had broke through and continued to go. So the rig didn't hit bottom when we were there. So I don't know how deep that went, but what they believed the depth to be was really just probably because of the water temperature and the blooms out there because of the sulfur and everything. it was just basically a really thick pad of algae that they punched through. So, so yeah, I really don't know. I have no idea how deep this place is. It's only about a mile across. It's not a super big lake, you know. But like I said, yeah, it was believed, the Native Americans believed it was a access point to the ocean. Um, and they also believed that it was a portal spot in terms of they buried their chiefs uh, in a burial ground back there that was what's protected ground, for them. And so they really believed this place had a lot of power. This Zaka Lake had a lot of power to it. So to have two experiences like that, back to back was, within a year of each other was pretty intense for me, being from where I was from. But yeah, it was really, really neat. I mean, totally something else. And, we had a lot of people that would come up with groups and stuff like that. A lot of the groups that would come up, a lot of them would be, we'd have like metaphysical groups and stuff like that come up a lot. And I'm Christian, and I've, um, I'm pretty open minded to just about anything. So I would love to sit down and talk to them and kind of see what their vibe was and what they felt like. And man, I can't even tell you how many times they would tell me that place was, a place of power and like a portal location. Many times they tell me that, and I would just I just think like, yep, I had these experiences, and I generally wouldn't share it with them because I didn't want them to go after it. You know what I mean? To really try to um, I don't know, dig into it. And I'm sharing it now because it's so long ago. This was also like 97, and the place is locked down. So like you can't go get in it. It's a private property. It's fully locked by gate and patrolled. So I'm not as worried about it anymore today. Something like that happening, but yeah, so that was my second experience there. And what's odd is because of how good, how long I was up there. I mean, those are the only two times, but it's kind of amazing to me that nothing ever happened again. But at the same time, I'm amazed that anything happened, so it's kind of a trip.
Yeah, that is absolutely amazing. And did the Sasquatch arm encounter happen in the same time frame as the lake monster encounter?
Yeah, I'd say it's about 4.5 months apart. So
Oh,
Sasquatch encounter first, and then this lake monster thing was later on down into the winter months.
yeah. There had to been some sort of spiritual significance behind it, and I don't know. I feel like something was going on in your life or about to happen. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, it's definitely possible. It brought me a lot closer to, I think, thinking about um, things differently in nature and being more aware that maybe this isn't just what you see on TV, right? Like back when I was a kid, it was National Geographic. You just see this, and like the cryptid thing was really like really out there, and when it happens to you, that kind of thing happens to you, it really brings that to you question things, right? Like like wow, the Sasquatch I was more comfortable with because my cousin, my dad's cousin, having encounters and stuff like that and telling us about them. So I was more like, okay, but this, it really kind of, like I said, I didn't go back in the water for a couple of days, and I'm somebody I was very difficult to keep out of the water. It kind of shook me for a second, and then I kind of realized like, okay, this thing was just kind of showing itself to me. It was just same thing. I'm fortunate to have seen it,
Yeah.
and get on, right, and like if it wanted to do something more, it would have. Is what I had thought in it. So it kind of it gave me more of a connection, I would say, to the place, honestly.
Yeah, I agree
So
with that completely. And I don't know, like, even if you're a Christian or whatever you believe, you wonder, like, is there really a God? And you hear all these stories from the Bible. It's like, well, none of that's happened to me. And you hear about these conspiracies, whether it's like the Roswell incident and conspiracies about the government. And when you run into one of these creatures, it really gets the gears turning. And it's like, well, if that exists, then so does
Yeah.
all these other things. Because honestly, I believed in God more than cryptids. And once I seen a cryptid, it's like, wow, that is real. There is more to
Yeah.
life, and it just opens up a whole new set of doors.
It does. Yeah. And when you're talking about we were talking about like Roswell, for instance. I was really it's kind of funny because I grew up. My dad was a minister, but in my house, UFOs were very standardized. My grandfather was in Strategic Air Command in the Air Force, and he worked at White Sands, and he worked at Nellis, and his he was an artist. So when I grew up, like we had a picture of a UFO in my den, which is where we all sat and ate dinner every night and watched TV. Our whole family. And so I really thought it was just a normal thing. Like I wasn't aware that people didn't believe that UFOs were real. So that's kind of crazy, but I just really did, and I really just thought uh, that they were, totally like normal. Like everybody had a picture in their household, right? Like I did, so why wouldn't they? Um, but that actually ended up potentially getting me into trouble one time in my life, and it confirmed when you talk about government conspiracies, it confirmed some things for me, because I think seeing that photograph so much, you'd be at school and they'd be talking about something. A teacher might mention something about UFOs and how they're not real, and I would speak up, and go, yeah, they are. My grandpa has a picture. We have a picture on our wall, and I would tell people because I just didn't think that it was a something that you kept secret, right? And one time I think I was like 14, and I was at my dad's house, and we went to Kmart, and we came home from Kmart, and my dad was a minister, but he was also a very uh, private person and kind of extremely protected. He believed that he was abducted by aliens at one point, so he was very protective. Our house was super set up, so our we had a security screen that was reinforced with multiple locks, and then a door that was reinforced with multiple locks. Well, we came home from Kmart, and those were both open, the security screen and the front door. Nothing wrong with them. Nothing was broken. They were unlocked and opened. And we walked in, and the only thing that was taken was that picture of that UFO. And it was taken off of, like, we had like wood paneling, and like the picture frames were like wood paneled picture frames that stuck to the wood paneling. And it was just ripped out of the center of this collage of pictures and taken. And in the house, my dad was a musician. So there's tons, I mean, probably hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of guitar gear and a firearm safe full of firearms. Nothing was touched except that picture. So that was about a year before I went into the woods, and that really set me on like a questioning, like, oh, there's only one way that could have happened. Somebody unlocked the locks. Who would unlock the locks? The only people that have the keys, my dad. Kind of thing. Yeah. So it totally freaked me out. It was such a clear picture of a UFO over a lake, and I mean, like crystal clear, black and white, that my grandpa had taken at Nellis. But yeah, so I was always a believer in that because of that picture right there.
What did the UFO look like?
Almost exactly like it was round, saucer like, and it had a dome, a small dome on top, and um, oh gosh, I cannot remember. Bob Lazar had actually drawn a picture one time. I'm sure you know who Bob Lazar is. Um, he had drawn a picture of what he worked on, and when he drew that picture, I went, "That's what was in my grandpa's photograph." Like almost exactly. So that really freaked me out when I saw that.
Yeah, that is really interesting. And it's hard to say who broke in and stole this photo, but my guess is word got around and someone who was in the know found out about it and broke in and took it.
Yeah, I would say that is. There's only very few people that would have the skill set to be able to get into the house and do that. And then and target just that thing,
Yeah.
for sure.
And they
So I'm
definitely were
hoping.
watching you guys because they knew when you wouldn't be home, how to get in
Yep.
there and how to get through the locks and just to know where exactly everything was and what was there.
Yeah, totally, totally. When and then after that, you're like, dang, I'm never safe, right? Like if they can get into my dad's house, they can get in anywhere. Like, yeah, that was kind of freaky, but
Hmm.
yeah, it was.
I
And
had
I'm hoping
someone,
my.
oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I had someone break into my house once and they got in through the window, and the only thing they took was the Xbox and the games. And it's like, why didn't they take all the rifles on the wall and everything else that was in the house, guitars, all kinds of expensive stuff? They only took the Xbox. So that led me to believe it was someone that I knew.
Yeah, yeah, probably. Yeah, yeah. It's interesting because I now have in my possession, locked up. I don't know if it'll matter or not, but probably not. Um, I have probably tens of thousands of negatives, and from all of my grandpa's artwork and pictures. So I'm in the process of going through those, and I'm hoping that I find it in there. That'd be wonderful. So we'll see if anything ever comes of it, but
Yeah, that'd be
it'd be super
amazing.
cool.
If you find it,
Yeah,
I want to see a copy of it. I won't share it with
yeah,
anyone.
100%. Yeah, 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 yeah. I wish my dad would have told me just not to say anything, and I wouldn't have, but I just didn't know. I just was like, oh yeah, that's real, like I'd almost get into fights about it at school.
Hmm.
Like,
Well, when you hear the
that's
people
funny.
you trust or that are supposed to be leading the children, and we learn from them when they say UFOs aren't real, and they are, you have to speak up because how would they know? Like, there's so many planets out there, so many galaxies, and for them to teach that it's not real, I mean, that's extremely close-minded, and that's just the way the system works nowadays.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, yeah, I agree totally.
Okay, so going
Yeah.
back to the lake monster, what do you think it was? What did the natives say about it? Was it like Loch Ness or was it like a Leviathan? How can you describe this creature?
I would say probably like Loch Ness. Yeah. Not the serpent like, but more like the uh what's it called? Like a plesiosaur like.
So more
Um,
dino like.
yeah, yeah, that's what I would guess. Um, like I said, the back was very rigid. It had this, very defined ridge, like spine almost, you know, uh, and that really caught my eye because the ridge was glistening in the moonlight, along with the scales, but you could see where the indentations were next to the top of the ridge, when it came down into the muscle or whatever, right? Like, into the shape of the body. And it had to be pretty wide because, canoes they're not super wide, but about probably 36 inches or so wide, and it was wider than that and longer than my canoe. So much longer, I'm sure, to be lifting me out because it felt like it was arcing when it hit me, kind of like a whale does. Felt like it was pushing me up in an arc and then coming back down. When I came back down pretty smooth, like I had to stabilize because you're in a canoe, but it was relatively smooth. It wasn't like a splash. So that's what makes me think it was arcing. Like it came up, pushed me out in an arc, and came back down.
Oh man, that had to have been a creepy feeling. And yeah, it's wild when you see a cryptid creature, how animal like they are. Like they'd always been there, but people say they come from other dimensions, portals, and it's just wild seeing something like that because it seems so natural in its environment.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, totally. Like was supposed to be there, and it was just showing itself to me real quick. Yeah,
Yeah. So the
yeah, it was
natives
amazing.
said that there's possibly like underground entrances like underneath the lake that lead out to the ocean, and it's a portal area.
Yeah, and there was a couple that believed that in a couple of Native American elders that I had helped when I worked up there. They allowed me to help build their sweat lodges and stuff, and they had told me that they even had tales of the U.S. military popping up with submarine in the lake. That that's what they were told by their parents that the military would come in, and that's how they it's kind of how they confirmed some of their theories about there being a connection somewhere, which seems totally crazy because the lake's not very big, like I said, and you're landlocked, like you're 40 miles from the road, and an hour and maybe 65 miles from the ocean at that point, maybe more, so
Yeah, to me that
it's
does make sense. And maybe the Nazis knew about these portals and cryptid creatures, and maybe Hitler got away like just by using these portals or these underground tunnel systems or lakes. Maybe it's not the way we heard, like he escaped to Brazil or Argentina. Maybe he took a different route. Now, I know that's like a wild conspiracy and way out there, but you just never know if these things do exist. They knew about that kind of stuff because there's claims that they were, I don't know, into like the UFO subject, and
oh yeah,
I don't know,
super into the occult.
Yeah, exactly.
Very heavily into the occult. Like, I mean, he was obsessed, from what I understand anyway, from what I've read. Yeah. Yeah, it's super possible. I mean, you never know.
Yeah.
Right. Like you said, when you start to see some of this stuff and you're like, wow, like it really does open up a world of things. You're like, okay, well, if that's real, there can be a lot of things that are real, right? Like, truly. Yeah, it's also interesting about that place is like I said, we had they had, they buried their chiefs there and they burnt their dead on the lake. So that's kind of what they did, is they buried their chiefs in a place called Chiefs Canyon, which was just maybe, I don't know, a couple hundred yards from the lake as the crow flies, and then they would burn their dead on the lake. So when we used to hike to a spring that was through the canyon, through the Chiefs Canyon, through the burial ground, and there was a path that kind of it traversed it, going along the outside of the burial ground. And I had gone there with a couple of elders to get water a couple of times because we'd get fresh spring water right out of the side of the hill there. And so I would go at night every once in a while, because when I told you we had a lot of mountain lion activity, when you get into that area, just before you got to the burial ground, there was tons of I say tons is probably 6, 7, 8, 10 maybe large machines, tractors, dozers, earth movers that were way older, that were left there and abandoned. So the story was that they were abandoned because they were scared out of that area and they just left these things. So I mean, they were like rotting into the riverbed. And anyway, you'd have to walk past this, and then as soon as you get up on the other side of the riverbed that they were dozing at one time, you get into the Chiefs burial ground. And when you start walking along that, I'd like to go at night, and you would start to hear little noises, and if you were quick about it, you could catch a mountain lion kind of tracking you, or 2 or 3, sometimes 4 or 5, which is crazy. That's not how they operate. So that really is interesting, because that's the only time that ever happened. Nothing ever happened to me. I mean, I went hundreds of times through there, and I'd go through there, and I took my mom one time when she was up to visit me, and we walked through there, and I told her, okay, let's stop. When you hear something, just stop. And then I told her, I'm going to catch a lion with my lights, watch. And I did. I turned and I got it with a flashlight, and there was like 4 of them. And she was really trying not to panic, And I told her, don't worry, they don't do anything. They just walk with you. And then when you get out of it and you're heading towards a spring, they don't follow you. They only follow you when you're along the burial ground, and they don't do anything. We're not doing anything. We're just walking through. Yeah, so that's kind of something that's totally freaky. I witnessed that, many times. Like I said, my mom, my boss, he's the one that we originally went up there with one of the elders and noticed it, and he's like, "Oh yeah, don't worry about it," So they're kind of the guardians of the burial ground there. So that was so yeah, this whole place was there's a lot of energy there, I would say.
Yeah, it's a spiritual area for sure. I feel like in today's world, like if you have a cryptid encounter, people will listen to you in the cryptid community, and that's pretty much it. But like back in the day, if you had these encounters as you get older, you possibly become an elder. Is that how that work? Like the elders experience things that most of the tribe never had the opportunity to experience. How do you become an elder or a chief?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly. I know that um, that in terms of elders, yeah, there was only like at the time like probably 6 or 7 of them that I talked to, and that I would one that lived there, and then 5 or 6 that would come up. And it's interesting too because there were some younger guys that would come up as well, and they'd help work, especially when we were doing stuff like the sweat lodges and stuff like that, and they would help work. But a lot of times they had problems, maybe alcohol or drug abuse problems and stuff, and the elders would ask them to leave. They wouldn't let them stay the night. So I'm not sure what that hierarchy was like, but I can tell you that there was a level of respect that you had to obtain and keep consistently to be allowed to really even just stay there at all. And that even comes down to the owner uh, allowing groups up and stuff. If they were disrespectful in any way, no matter the money that they were paying, they were gone. I mean, we'd 86 them out of there very quickly. And yeah, that was kind of it's interesting because we would have groups that would come up, for a month, and we'd have like Zen retreats that would come up, and it's no talking, so a silent retreat where they'd have, you'd have 30, 40, 50, 60 people that would come up and there's no words spoken. So you have to also do the same when you're working with them because it's, that's just part of the job, And yeah, it was kind of interesting. We had people who came up to do a vision quest. They were there from Germany, a group from Germany that came and did a vision quests out there, and I led a lot of those guys out to do their vision quests and stuff like that, along with some a couple tribal members that okayed it, and and they were super interested because they wanted them to get to know the culture. Really, they were super happy to kind of talk about it and show it, and it's cool too because this place I don't think they do it anymore, but we used to do um, like camp for kids that were less fortunate, and they would come up, from LA and stuff, and spend a week out in the woods, and just learning how to use a canoe and how to eat outside, really, and just be, and so it was really a neat place. And the elders, they really would come up and they do a showcase, and we'd even get the Santa Barbara University to come out, and they'd send a biologist, and they'd go through all the plant life and the animals. So we had a lot of, like I said, bears, mountain lions, a lot of rattlesnakes. We had a panther up there, a black panther that escaped from Neverland Ranch, which is kind of funny, which was Michael Jackson's ranch. So, because it's actually relatively close to that. It's maybe, I don't know, 35 miles from Neverland Ranch as the crow flies, through the woods. And they had an escape, and their handlers came out to our property and asked if they could come on and track. And we did. We took part with them and tried to track it, and they never found it. But you could hear it at night. It's totally like a new night sound. Every once in a while you'd hear this thing, and it was like way dominant. It's very interesting.
Yeah, that is. And what kind of encounters have you heard from the area from the natives, your friends, or other family members? Has anyone else seen a Sasquatch or a strange cryptid creature that they can't explain?
Like I said, my dad had thought he was abducted. He believed he was abducted by UFOs. Uh, my my dad's cousin, he'd seen Sasquatch several times. He said he lived in Watsonville, up in Santa Cruz, and then they also lived out in the woods, up in the redwoods, in the coastal redwoods, for some time. And he said he almost hit one with a Volkswagen bus on accident. And they were very much into. He was a um, a farmer. Let's put it that way, out in the middle of the woods in Northern California. And yeah, he said he had quite a lot of experiences, all positive. He never said he had any negative experiences with Sasquatch ever. And in terms of the tribe that I worked with, yeah, they were really like almost like, oh yeah, that's how it is, kind of like totally like normal about it, which was really cool for me because I could talk to somebody about it, and not feel like I was crazy, right? Because they're just totally like welcoming about it. I'm like, oh yeah, you're really lucky, and that's super cool. And yeah, we have, and that's the thing. It's like I said, it's a Chumash, and they have painted caves, and apparently there is a bipedal creature that's depicted in the painted caves, along with a some type of lake creature. Uh, so yeah, they have a deep lore of that, of both of those things that I got to witness while I was there.
Yeah, the myth is reality. And that's how it is in Washington. A guy that I interviewed from Washington, he told one of the natives, "Oh my gosh, I just seen a Sasquatch. I can't believe it." And the native was just like, "Oh yeah, yeah, they're out there. Every spring they come down from the mountain." And
Yeah,
he just acted
yeah,
like it was no big deal, went back inside and did his regular routine. The guy was shocked though.
yeah,
He's like, he acted like it was no big deal.
yeah, yeah. And it's interesting. I live in North Idaho now, and I'm only about an hour from Canada, hour and a half from Canada, and we do have a lot of sightings and stuff around here, and it's a thing here for sure. It's a culture up here. I've worked so since I've been up here 10 years, and I've worked so much that I haven't got out and done anything that I've wanted to do. So I'm not going to experience. I do IT work, so I'm not going to experience some doing IT work. So I'm trying to make it a point to get out more. But yeah, it's in California, in that area. It's interesting because if you're in Northern California, it's very accepted. At the time in the 90s and 2000s, and it was very accepted. Where I was, which was like they call it central, like the southern tip of Central Cal, but there is really no such thing. It's Southern California still. So you're only, I don't know, 2.5 hours, 3 hours from LA, North LA. It's not far. And it's people really think you're out there if you've had an experience in that area, because it's mainly people who just don't know, that there is desolate woods in Southern California. A lot of people just don't know. There's, I mean, millions of acres that are there's nobody has seen in that. Very few have seen, I should say, in that area. But it's because there's such a big bubble of human beings, and they just really can't imagine, Sasquatch being in Los Angeles, right? But but it's not that far from LA. It's relatively close, but that population dips off as soon as you get out of LA. It starts dipping off drastically, you know. So yeah, when you tell people about that, they're like, "What? You're like 3 hours north of LA?" Yeah, right. Kind of thing is they're not gonna really buy it. It's not as accepted in that area. But
Yeah.
I was talking to a buddy at work the other day, and he grew up in Washington, and he asked me, we were talking about it, and I happen to have like the Gimlin picture on my phone, that's my screensaver. It's like one of my rotating pictures that pops through, uh and he's seen it, and he goes, "Oh, you think that's real?" I told me, "Yeah, I do," and he laughed at me. He goes, "What do you're from LA, what do you know?" And I didn't say, I just laughed. I'm like, "Yeah, okay, dude, whatever," like I don't, it doesn't matter to me. But it's funny because he imagines me, and he grew up in the woods. I lived in isolation for a year and a half in the woods, or more. You know what I mean? And you just would never know that. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's kind
it's
of
wild
interesting.
how populated California is, but when you look on a map, it's crazy how much woods there is. If you get on Google Earth, there's just so much woods, especially around every big city. I mean, there's more woods
Yeah.
than city, it seems like, especially like in Humboldt County, like up north. I mean, all
Oh
over the
yeah.
place, really. I mean, it's wild.
Yeah. It's super. I mean, if you like the Grapevine, it's super populated driving wise, but there's like the towns that are there, like maybe 1,000 people, and then it's just like desert and forest. I mean, there's just this vastness there that is untouched, really. Uh, Anything could be living there. I mean, for sure. You know, um, Even if they weren't traveling through portals, I mean, they could for sure sustain themselves. There's a lot of deer, and you know, it's very populous, like you said, but it's also um, quite rural, and most of it is rural.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, these things are physical creatures. They are out there eating nuts and berries, but at the same time, there's something deeper going on. And I don't know, that's what really blows my mind, is that the spiritual realm, like a creature from the spiritual realm, would need to eat physical food. But that leads me to believe that their realm is a lot more real than ours, and maybe we're the ones living in the matrix. One of my friends brought that up the other day. He's like, what if we are living in the matrix and these creatures kind of just get input into our reality and then taken out, which, kind of does make sense to a degree, because you hear people talking about the tracks that just disappear, the creature just vanished into thin air. You hear about the orbs, and it makes you wonder, like,
Yeah.
if we're living in a simulation, which I don't know, it kind of seems like it, especially with Jesus rising from death. He defied all that, and he was able to predict that before it ever even happened.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Yeah. It's very, very interesting. I know, like Jeff Meldrum, obviously, I'm sure you know that he passed away last week.
Yeah.
Um, but he proved, to me anyway, and beyond a shadow of a doubt, as far as I'm aware, that there is some type of physicality to them, right? Like 100%, there's prints and they're legit and they're have their own patterns and have their own markers, just like we do with our feet and our hands. And at the same time, you have these orbs and you have things disappearing and uh, some. I think I was watching a video of Les Stroud's when he was up in Canada, of an apple being taken at a height that is unimaginable, on film, right? And like it avoiding the camera so smoothly while doing it, and that really, that kind of stuff is, and him talking about orbs out in the middle of, woods that are so deep and desolate. Like there's no way anybody who's never been in that could even understand how how desolate that is out there right now, or how I mean, there's nothing there. So it's pretty. You shouldn't be seeing lights floating in the air.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And it's horrible what happened to Dr. Jeff Meldrum, and he truly will be missed. He definitely brought a lot to the table when it comes to the subject, and I really liked his approach. Like, we need physical proof, even if they are spiritual. We need physical proof of a physical being, because they do leave tracks. You can find hair, you can video these creatures, but on another note, there are things going on that we can't explain, and possibly the missing people are stepping into these other realms. And you hear these stories where somebody just went missing and they ended up 40 miles away from where they previously were, and they have no idea how they got there. And people see this evidence with the missing people, like this kid went missing and he ended up 70 miles away from where he went missing. Like, how does that even happen? Like, there's no explanation to it.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Yeah, that stuff's a trip. Totally, it
For
really is.
sure. I've interviewed people. They said that it was a lady named Kristen in Georgia, and one of her research partners claims that he was looking at an orb, and he voiced over to her through the walkie-talkie, and he ended up somewhere else after seeing the orb, like a completely different area.
Wow.
Yeah. And over the weekend, I was with my friend Adam from the Half Inch Wrench crew, and he was telling me that his friend was hunting a wildlife area, and he ended up somewhere completely different. He has no idea how he got there. They were all looking for him, and everyone was just baffled.
Wow, that's so crazy. Yeah, that's something else, right there. Yeah, I haven't experienced anything quite like that exactly myself.
Have you
I
heard
had
about it from the natives or anybody locally?
yeah, I have heard about, missing time for sure. That people would miss days and sometimes longer of their life and not know, where. And a lot of times, a lot of the vision quests and stuff like that. That's kind of, like they would do like usually a week or so, but they really didn't know because it was whenever it took place, right? Whatever they were looking for was shown to them, which is basically when your spirit animal comes into your circle, and then that okays you to pretty much finish up, right? There wasn't like a time limit, but they weren't even aware of time with those things, really, right? Like it's like it just happens. So but yeah, they definitely, definitely had talked about missing time and time slowing and speeding up.
Yeah.
And especially in the area that I worked there.
Time
Yeah, I had
works.
a
It's a strange thing.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I had an experience where I almost I had gone I was in the ocean. I had paddled out to it was a real big storm, and a couple of my buddies didn't think I could make it out. It was probably 20, 25 foot, like really maxed out beach break that was just crazy and super consistent. And I told them, yeah, I can make it out. I was maybe 18 at the time, and I threw my wetsuit on and I paddled out and I found a rip current to pull me out, which is pretty normal if you're a surfer. Everybody does that. And I paddled out there. Well, the with the storm surge and everything, the rip was too much for me to overcome. I couldn't overcome it, so it just kept pulling me out until I couldn't see houses anymore. The beach was gone, and I could not paddle parallel. Like you're taught, you paddle parallel to the beach, and that gets you out of the rip, and then you go in. Well, I couldn't, and it was stormy, and it was starting to get dark, and I'm like now in the middle of the Pacific in the wintertime, you know. And so I turned around and I just closed my eyes and started praying, and I just started paddling as hard as I could into the rip, how you're not supposed to. And I have no idea how long, but when I opened my eyes back up, I started to be able to see lights, and I was able to get back in. I found myself paddling and just put my head down, like I said, closed my eyes, and then just focused on just paddling and not feeling like the pain from the paddle, from anything, fatigue or anything. And like I said, when I opened my eyes back up, everything was coming back into view, and I don't even know how much progress, because it was probably an hour that I was getting sucked down to the ocean. And there's no way it was an hour that I was coming back. So I don't know if that's like something like that, but that's the only time in my life I could say that I've had any type of experience like that where, I don't know if it had to do with my adrenaline or what, but I know that, I just I just knew that if I didn't do this thing, that I was going to die, and that's what I did, and yeah, I made it back, but I got my $20, but but yeah, it did seem like there was a large lapse in time there, from when I determined myself to do this thing and when I suddenly was able to get back in, So, like I said, I don't know if that has anything to do with losing time of any sort, but it's the closest I've ever come. I can tell you that.
Yeah, that's wild. And I'm glad you found your way back and going out in the ocean alone. That's spooky, man. So
Yeah,
yeah,
stupid is what it is. Yeah, it's not smart.
yeah, I've done it before, and I'll never do it again.
Yeah.
When I interviewed the native from Canada last week, he mentioned the sweat lodge as well. Is that something you guys do according to your spiritual faith, or is it just like a comfort thing?
So it was done. It was really, I wasn't even like, it was amazing that they allowed me to even take part in building it because it's sacred. Um, and uh, and then yeah, I was allowed to use it when we wanted to, and it's really just like a meditative thing where you sit down and they would do what they did. They might have a pipe, or they might use some tobacco and something like that, or they might have a meeting. Um, but for me, when we would do it, me and my buddy, um, I would usually just sit in there and pray, or just try to clear my thoughts. And I didn't ever do it too long. Sometimes, man, they'd be in there for a while, but yeah, it was amazing that they'd allow me to even take part in collecting the rocks that you needed, because even that part is considered sacred to them. So to that tribe, to all tribes, I'm sure. But yeah, it's a for them it's a religious thing for sure. For me, I was kind of um, I just want to be part of it, and I didn't ask. They asked me, and if I would have asked, they probably would have said no. But they asked me to be a part of it, and it is, oddly enough, it is after I told them about my encounters and stuff like that, and we had some chats about that type of thing, and uh, so I don't know if, like I said, my mentality was very much just trying to be in tune with my surroundings and just be as respectful as I possibly could, and I think that's why I was allowed to be part of those things.
Wow. Yeah, they must have saw something big in you, and they accepted you as one of their own. And that's amazing. And I believe that they definitely believed you. And a light bulb went off in my head as you were describing the sweat lodge. I've had several experiences and also some really close friends of mine that aren't around anymore with the Sasquatch leaving these smooth stones for us. They'll leave them on the porch in the middle of trails or down by the creek bottoms. They'll put them in strange formations. And yeah, when you said that even the stones are sacred, and I don't know. It
Yeah.
made me wonder, like, why? Because I was actually wondering this today as I was preparing a PowerPoint presentation for a Bigfoot conference that I'm doing in Richland, Missouri later on this week. And I put some photos of the rocks that they gifted. I'm like, why do they do this? And when you were explaining that the rocks are sacred, a light bulb went off.
Yeah, that's interesting for sure. That totally, um, they really do have meaning to them.
Yeah.
Um, so that's super interesting. Yeah, I didn't really know, at the time I didn't know about formations and things like that. I know more about it now, of course. But I had no idea at the time. So I never even looked for anything like that. But collecting, yeah, that was a big thing. Like they really wanted, being a part of that was like my foreman wasn't allowed to. So I mean, he was he was not absolutely not allowed to be part of it. So um, yeah, and he was he was a nice guy, good dude. He was crazy. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it. He was an old bull rider, so he was nuts. But
Yeah, it's like that in every religion. Like if you live a sinful life, there's certain things that you can't do in the church. And I remember reading in the Old Testament about the Ark of the Covenant, and like only certain people were allowed to go into the tent. Certain people were allowed to handle the ark and anything that involved it. Like there were certain jobs, like they had priests and guards, and only like it was sacred grounds. And yeah, if you were like not cleansed, you could not go in there. You couldn't touch certain things. So it definitely makes sense with the natives' traditions for me, anyways.
yeah, yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think there's a definitely a connection there with that for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay, Matt, do you have anything else that you'd like to share? Anything that you can think of? I feel like I'm holding you up, man. But if you
Oh
got more
no,
stuff,
no,
I'd
good.
definitely love to
Mhm.
hear about it.
No, I think that's pretty much it for me,
Hmm.
that I can think of offhand anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I had, I've had paranormal experiences and stuff like that, a couple of those, that were that are yeah, I could go through, one or two of those real quick if you'd like.
Okay.
Um, it was probably pretty close to the same age. I was probably, my one of my grandfathers was so my dad was a minister. My mom's dad was, more into the occult and witchcraft. So growing up, around Halloween, he would really get into the Ouija board and stuff like that. And so I learned to play with it when I was pretty young, right? Like at his house. And my dad had always, I'd learned about it. I shouldn't say I learned to play with it. I learned about it when I was pretty young. I was probably like 10 years old or so, 8 years old when I learned about it. I didn't play it. Um, I told my dad about it. My dad told me, don't ever touch that thing. Don't go anywhere near it. Don't put your hands on it. Don't take part in anything that has to do with it. So it was like a very taboo, right, for me. So on my 12th birthday, my parents were divorced when I was 8. So I was at my mom's house on my 12th birthday, and I really wanted to play the Ouija board. So I told my friends, so they got me one. And we sat down and we played it. And, I mean, I don't know if it worked or not, right? I have no idea. Because there were a bunch of 12-year-olds, right? 12, 13, and 14-year-olds playing this game, at night in a house that, in my mom's house, and all alone pretty much. And so the next, it was about 2 days later, the weekend came. My dad came to pick me up, and he picked me up on Friday. And I got in the truck, and he drove me out to the desert. And he got out of the truck, And he said, get out. And I got out and I walked over to him and he said, what did you do? And I told him, what are you talking about? And he goes, what did you do? You did something you shouldn't have done. What'd you do? I told him, I don't know what you're talking about. I just started vomiting. And he said, you played the Ouija board. I told you not to play it. And I stopped vomiting. I felt way better. I didn't feel sick or anything before getting in the truck. I was fine. When I got out, I started talking to him. This feeling came over me, just super nauseous. I just, like I said, just vomited all over the place. It's terrible. Um, and then I was fine. And he said, man, and he prayed for me. And we got back in the truck and we drove home and he talked to me about it and told me that's a stepping stone and I shouldn't touch that. So I'm like, who told him? Right. Like my friends didn't. They didn't know my dad lived an hour away from my mom. It's not like we didn't have cell phones and stuff then, right? It's not like you're texting somebody's dad. And my mom had, no clue. And even if she did, my mom was very like kind of Wiccan. And my dad was Christian. And that's probably one of the reasons our relationship didn't work out, right? So she was very much like she would totally keep things from my dad. She never would have said anything. So I still to this day, he passed away. My dad passed away 10 years ago. I still to this day have zero clue how he ever knew that happened. He said, I heard inside that you played with it. And yeah, so that's creepy. Um, it didn't stop me. I played, probably hundreds, that maybe thousands more times when I was a kid. And uh, I don't, have you ever heard of La Llorona?
I have not.
No. Okay, so it's a pretty famous um, or like paranormal legend. Well, I played it in the cemetery where that took place. So I was like, we lived 15 minutes from where La Llorona took place. So I would and you can check that anytime you want to, but it's basically a lady who stands on the side of the road and people see this ghost figure. And there's a movie about it that I think was done by the gosh, I can't remember the same people who did the Nun, that kind of stuff. But anyway, yeah, it's like a real like legend from Southern California. And anyway, so I would play all the time and uh, really try to scare myself, and really try to get something going on, and I think I got a kick out of it, scaring my friends and stuff, just being in the presence of it, people would freak out. So anyway, I think I was maybe I don't even know how old I was, but me and my current wife now, we were living together. We were young, and I was playing it, and I walked down my hall to go to the bathroom, and I came back to walk in my room, and I felt something breathe on my neck, and I knew instantly that was something I didn't never wanted to feel again and deal with. And I walked in, I grabbed it, took it outside, lit it on fire. I never touched it again because I knew I felt this presence, this evil that I had absolutely never felt in my life. And it completely like overtook me. Like I could feel it through my whole body when this thing breathed on my neck. And right away, I just started praying and, repented for, I guess, you know, uh, really testing God. Really, that's what I was doing that for all that time. For years and years and years of doing that. And yeah, that was pretty crazy. I didn't see anything. I would go into haunted houses and stuff, and like, yeah, I'd hear stuff here and there, and catch glimpses of things here and there and stuff. But it didn't bother me. I was not scared of it. But when that happened, yeah, absolutely. And it was like in my mom's house. Like there was no reason for me to be scared at all. But that feeling. And then same thing. I'm a guitar player. I don't know. It sounded like you had guitars too. Are you a guitar player as well?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. So my dad, that was a big thing with my dad. He had told me like, if you really get into this, here's a song you need to listen to. And it was Robert Johnson, right? Crossroads, right? I'm sure you've heard this song. Um, and I thought, yeah, right. Like, but I can distinctly remember 3 times when I was playing music and I felt like I was playing so well and I was in such a groove. And it's like I was presented with something at that time, like a choice. And every time I turned it down instantly and stopped playing and like two of the times I'd had a couple of whiskeys, and the last time I was not. I was totally like, so I hadn't probably had a whiskey in a year or something, at that time. The last time that it happened, but I really felt something uh, almost come over me, and I thought about what my dad said, like you're going to be asked the question and you better give the right answer, kind of thing, the crossroads, right? So yeah, I was at varying ages, probably 14 or so when the first time that happened, and then uh, probably 16, 17, the second, 18, the second time, and then really in my like 30, the last time that it happened. But yeah, yeah. So a couple little paranormal things here and there that have always let me know that there's something more going on than what we see, right?
No, yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you stopped playing with the board, and it can definitely be dangerous. Yeah, sometimes we do these things to seek answers and just to find out if there's more out there. And sometimes we get the answer and it may not be the way we like.
Yeah, yeah, and that was really my goal when I was a kid. I just really wanted to know, I wasn't trying to go against my dad or God or anything like that, but I wanted to know, but I'll tell you, I got my answer for sure.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Kids like
yeah,
to experiment and push the limits. And yeah, I
yeah.
mean, it makes sense.
It's like paddling out into the ocean by yourself. It's stupid. You should
Yeah.
not do it.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
I completely understand. And I appreciate you for sharing that with me.
yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Okay. Well, Matt, you did an excellent job at sharing these experiences. And yeah, I don't think your dad believes he saw a UFO. I think he knows he saw a UFO because he had a photo of it in the house. So, yeah, they say when these things show up and you're seeing them, that you're actually being abducted. So it makes sense to me, anyways, according to the encounter stories that I've heard from other people. And yeah, the Sasquatch arm reaching out, that's spooky, but like we discussed before, maybe it was a warning. And yeah, you definitely got the message. But yeah, if you encounter anything
yeah,
else in the future, definitely reach out to me. I know you said you're doing IT work, so make sure you get some nature into your routine, and it'll definitely be beneficial to you. And these things are in Idaho as well, so you'll have to keep me
oh yeah,
updated.
yeah, definitely, yeah, for sure, 100%, will do.
All right, Matt. Well, you have yourself a good night, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir. You have a
Yep.
good evening.
Thank you. You too.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.
All right, Matt, thank you very much for sharing your Bigfoot encounters and experiences with me here on Sasquatch Theory, and it truly means a lot. The encounter that you had definitely, to me, sounds like you were able to sneak up on the Sasquatch while riding your bicycle, and this thing had no idea you were there until you guys were already up on the creature. And I feel like it broke the limb and stuck its arm out to warn you not to come any further. And yeah, I'm glad you guys got out of there okay. It seems like the Sasquatch in California seem to be relatively nice compared to other places, and it's the same way in Missouri. You get a few scary encounters, but for the most part these things are just interacting with people. The creature that you encountered on the lake that bumped into your canoe, that definitely does not sound normal. It doesn't sound like any fish that would be in that lake, and the Native Americans said that it's a sacred lake, and there are passages that lead to the ocean, and they refer to it as a portal area, which is very interesting because it makes me wonder where these cryptid creatures come from and where they go to. If you've had a cryptid sighting and you would like to make a report of it here on Sasquatch Theory, feel free to get in touch with me sometime. And if you guys want to help support the channel, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and until the next one, you guys be safe out in the forest.